Welcome back, everyone. This is Frank Whiskey Charlie Zero Oscar. This video is about the beginner's guide to mobile HF, and it's a real fundamental video that I hope will get you going in HF mobile. So what are the basics in terms of getting to do mobile HF? Well, you're going to need an antenna that usually is on the surface of the car, usually on the roof. There's a coax cable that goes to the radio, and that's really it. The question is, how do you attach it to the car, and should you do other things like mount the radio to the car, and should the radio be attached to the battery because it's part of the grounding system? Well, this video is going to really be a very, very watered down version of what could be a very elaborate setup. You do mobile HF, and a lot of the times you'll see people use the battery of the car. I'm not going to do that. Or they'll rip the whole car apart so that they could put their radio. I'm not going to do that either. Or rip a hole, because that's really the best way to get a propagation. No, I'm not going to do that either. Nor am I going to put screws on my hatchback on the back of the car. And also, I'm not going to use 3 magnets, which is really hard to pull out, so that I can do 40 meters. Nor am I going to do 80 meters, unfortunately. It's 40 and below. And as I'm talking, hopefully you'll get an idea of some of the things that I went through. So what I am doing is that I'm using the Hustler Resonator. The Hustler Resonator, man, it is the antenna for me for mobile HF. Now, I know people out there are going to be like, no, you should get a Shark, or you should get a diamond antenna, it's better, or blah blah blah, and of course it all depends on the situation that you're in. Yes, I had other antennas and they didn't work out very well for me. And and I had a different mindset too, oh, I'm going to put this permanently in the car, because I might be able to. And a lot of the times it just didn't work out what I wanted to be. A lot of the times I wasn't getting good propagation because I didn't have very good SWR. I know some of you are going to say, SWR is not everything. You're right. But for now, that's my best indication that the radio is going to be pretty happy with the antenna. And so I'm using, again, the Hustler Resonator. If you ever go to a place where they sell radios, right, and you tell them, hey, I'm going to get, where are the resonators? They're going to be like, there's nothing like that. Just tell them Hustler, and they're like, oh yeah, we got those. And it's like, yeah, of course you do. The Hustler, there's a ton of Hustler antennas. The company Hustler has a bunch of antennas, but the Resonator is the one that are for mobile. Now, I got the RM40S and the RM20S. Now those, and I also got, I think, the 15S. The S stands for a much wider bandwidth that it's able to capture, because these are coils, and coils are really, really meant for sometimes very, very narrow bandwidths, very, I guess, high Qs or something. And so just be aware that if you buy the resonator that doesn't have an S, your bandwidth is going to be much smaller, and thus you might have to adjust the antenna based on where you want to be. Some people will be like, that's okay, I'll adjust my antenna or I don't need to adjust it because I'm only doing digital, so I'm only going to be on the lower part of the band, right? Or I might be on the phone portion. But sometimes when you're in a phone portion on the one that doesn't have an S, it doesn't seem to cover it. Now remember, well, first of all, you got to consider, do you have a tuner built into your radio? If you do, then yeah, you might not need the S. I personally like to have the S version, again, because it's a wider bandwidth and because I don't have to use a tuner. If you have an IC7300 though, with that tuner, it should be able to tune around those particular areas that it's not really quite doing it very well. And if you're using an IC705, I always think that using it without a tuner is probably better. Less things to worry about in that setup. So okay. So I got the Hustler, right? Hustler Resonator, 20 and 40. 20 is awesome during the day. 40, like any time with 40, it's like, it's okay. But still doable. I got a lot more photo activations with my 20 than my 40. So I have those two, right? And I'll have a mag mount. It's a magnet that's probably 6 to 8 inches wide, and you pop the magnet on the car. Now I pop the magnet in the back of the car, in the corner, not in the middle, based on people's experiences and mine as well, but also based on the theory, because remember, a vertical antenna is only one half of it. The other half is your car. The other half of the antenna is your car, because it's creating this thing called the ground plane. And so this is where it gets a little bit murky in terms of like, is your car short? Is it long? Is the roof of your car made out of some composite, and thus it can't seem to generate a ground plane? This is something that really you're going to have to experiment with. Some people think that on 40 meters you're going to need 3 magnets, because you're going to really need to, it's not very good in propagation when you only have one. I beg to differ, but that's because maybe I have a longer car, or a car that has more metal. I don't know. Maybe it is better to have maybe I will get better results if I do have a tri-magnet mount. But that is really hard to get off. I know there's a trick for it, but those things stay permanently. And like I think I said before, if you drill a hole in your car, they say that's probably the best. Of course, there are other things that you might have to consider too, like connecting like wire from the from the roof to the hatchback, or from the roof to the chassis or something. That might be something that you have to do, but I didn't do that. Okay, so I got my mag mount. I got my resonator. Now my resonator, it's a coil, right? It's a coil on the bottom, and then it has a piece of wire that you can adjust with 2 screws. On the bottom though, it's a female 3/8 connection. So technically you need something to connect that to the mag mount, because the mag mount will also be female. So sometimes they'll sell these like heavy duty springs that you can permanently leave the resonator on there. I would not use that, just because the distance of the coil to the surface of the car is too close, and I think when it resonates, it probably doesn't have a great pattern in terms of when it goes out into space, into the atmosphere. So what I've purchased, and they sell it, the Hustler company sells it, is a mast that is about more than 36 inches, whatever it is, 47 inches, 45 inches. And the mast, there's different types of masts. One that you can pop and fold, and another one that isn't. And there's also a shorter version, a shorter mast. Here's the thing. I think the higher your coil is from the car, the better. The mast apparently doesn't do anything in terms of the effect. Well, in terms of the propagation, I think it does in some ways, but it isn't that the longer your mast is, that you're going to have to readjust your antenna height of the wire that's connected to the coil. So the mast apparently is just really so that the higher it is, the better it has a way to propagate the wave out. And did I tell you that the coil, the magnet is on the back of the car? If I didn't, so the magnet, the mag mount is in the back of the car where you have the coil, and so when I'm pointed at a certain direction, let's say east, the idea is that the propagation wave is going through your car and going from the back to the front, and it's probably the best propagation wave that you're going to get. Not to say you can't propagate the other way, behind it or to the side, but I have noticed that if the car is pointing a certain direction, I do seem to have gained a better context on that direction. So if I'm pointing east, I get Idaho, right? Which happened yesterday. I was in Bolsa Chica State Park. I was pointing northeast, and because there was a QSO party, an Idaho QSO party, I was getting Idaho stations. Have never gotten Idaho stations with any of my antennas, because I was in the right place at the right time in the right situation. And then I'm pretty sure the beach helped in terms of propagation as well. Okay, so I got my magnet, right? I put it in the back of the car. I pop it in. Of course, I have the mast, the coil, and then I have the coax. The coax cable comes through the moonroof here, or it can come through the door. It doesn't really matter. One thing in particular that you need to keep in mind is that you might be getting common current. There's current that goes in the antenna, and it can't seem to radiate, and it might come back on the wire, on the surface of the wire. And then if you don't have a coil or something, or not a coil, I'm sorry, an iron core, if you don't have something to stop that current, it might go back to the radio, and it might affect your SWR. Now, I know I know what you're going to say. SWR is not everything. Yes, I know that, but it gives me the reassurance that the radio and the antenna sort of are going to resonate with each other. So some type of choke is going to be very necessary. I have a choke from Nelson Antenna, but it doesn't have to be fancy like that. It can be just a regular choke or some type of toroid. That has to be the appropriate mix, and I'm not sure what that mix is. Maybe I'll put it on the screen. And so that, you wrap around the coax, and so that's going to help you stop the current. That seems to be very, very important. Another thing that you're going to find out, which I haven't really figured out yet, is that if you have a SWR meter, like a rig expert or something, and you read the antenna and you look at it, and you'll be like, oh my god, this is beautiful, this is perfect. And then when you hook it up to the radio and you do, like for example the IC705 or the IC7300, they have their own built-in SWR meter, and you do that, you're gonna be like, whoa, it's off a lot. I'm not sure what's going on in there. Even if when the radio is grounded, there seems to be something weird with the signal. Maybe because there's more power that's being delivered to the antenna on the radio. Maybe that's why I'm getting a different SWR reading. People have, I've posted questions on this, and people have different ideas. So what I've done is like, I don't even look at the rig expert. I'm like, okay, rig expert, for this one, you're going to stay in the bag. I'm going to use the rig expert if I'm doing the end-pass light, or if I'm doing end-fed half wave, or my quarter wave ground plane antenna. You know, those are going to be, I'm going to take on my SWR meter. Boom, done, and I'm set. I'm happy. But with whatever reason, for the mobile, it's just there's just two different readings, and that just really bugs me. So what I'm thinking is, if the radio is telling me that the SWR is not that great, then that means we're going to have to do something. And what does that usually mean? It means that maybe you don't have the right coil. I'm sorry, the right choke, right? If you don't have the right choke, then most likely there's some common current going on there. That's one. The second one is the positioning of your mag mount. Believe it or not, if the position of the mag mount is in the middle, you might get a different reading than if it's in the back or in the front. You know, that was kind of like a key aha moment for me, that it didn't have to be in the center. You know, a lot of people, when you read things and when you look at people's, you know, YouTube videos, you know, like, oh, we got to put it in the center, you know, blah, 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 blah. And that makes sense. You know, put it in the center, it's going to propagate, you know, in every direction. But the moment I started to experiment a little bit for my situation, I put it in the back, in the corner. And if you watch, there's a video out there on, you know, a guy at the ARRL in Anaheim. He has a car, and he puts his antenna in the back because it propagates from the back to the front. I thought, oh man, that kind of makes sense, because I do that too. And sure enough, that's where I've placed it all this time. In your situation, it might be in the middle or on the side. So the idea of the radio being grounded, that's up to you. If you feel like the radio needs to be grounded, that's fine, but it's not going to give you a better SWR. The grounding of the radio only is there so that if there's some type of current or something that's going on the radio, it's going to go to the ground. It's not going to, you know, shock you or something. But it has almost nothing to do with your propagation of your signal. Okay, so I got my mast, my coil, and the adjustment of the wire, right? The radiating element. So there's this wire, right, that you have two little tiny screws. Make sure you don't unscrew the whole thing, because you're going to lose that tiny little screw on the ground and it's gone. It just goes into the earth, seems to swallow it, because they're very tiny screws. So make sure you don't lose those. And when you're looking at the SWR, if the graph, right, the histogram, no, it's not a histogram, it's a bar graph. It could be a histogram, but a bar graph, if the dip is on the left, that means the antenna is too long. So unscrew it and push it in just a little bit. If the bar graph, you know, the dip is to the right, that means the antenna is too short. So that means just lift it up a little bit. What does it mean by the antenna being short or long, or the graph being on the left, on the right? Sometimes you want to be at a certain frequency, right? And if the bar suggesting of the SWR, right, it'll have the lowest SWR. If that range of where it's acceptable and people think it's 1.5 or below, you know, 2.0 SWR is fine too. But if the SWR is not in that range where you're going to do the phone or digital or something, then you're going to have to shift it over. Again, if the graph, the bottom point, right, if that's the lower part is on the right, then make the antenna longer. because it needs to be longer. And if that is on the left, then make it shorter. Do you have to adjust it all the time? Probably not. I have had to adjust it a little bit between the IC705 and the IC7300. They tend to be like different a little bit. And so when you're able to adjust it based on what your radio tells you, and again, these are just practices that I've discovered, right? If your SWR meter says it's cool and your radio says the same, then your situation is different, right? It's all about experimenting and figuring out, what's the best course. The choke is really important, and then considering where you're at, right? When I was at Bolsa Chic State Park, it's flat. The buildings, the homes are like far away, and it's very beautiful because then the wave could just like travel very nicely with no homes interfering in it or power lines. Like where I am at where I live, there's power lines and we have a substation just a block away, but I'm still able to do contacts, DX contacts. If there's trees in the way, those things do affect your propagation. So maybe you need to set it up somewhere else a little bit where there's not too much interference, but sometimes you can't, which is fine. The whole thing is that you're having fun and you're doing these experiments and you're trying to figure out how things work. And that's the payoff, right? When you find something that you like. But when the ARRL DX contest was around, boy, did I get some contacts. Because a lot of people were out there using the radios. I got contacts in near Australia. I'm trying to remember that island. But Australia, the Cook Islands, Hawaii, Alaska, Japan, Canada, of course, Vermont, which I consider like super far away, and all between the states. I mean, like Michigan, I never speak to people in Michigan, all the way to the Caribbean, the Cook Islands, and also all the way to almost to Portugal. Can you believe that? In the car. Now, these were all approximately 90 watts with my IC 7300. But it was pretty amazing, and I think again because of the contest I was able to get those contacts. But I have had great contacts when there is no contest. Just yesterday, again, I was at Bolsa Chica, and I spoke to people in Idaho. I never speak to anybody in Idaho, but they had a QSO party, and I was able to contact them on 40 and 20. So again, it depends on the situation that you're in. And I've also had contacts, DX contacts in the house. Well, not in the house, but like in the general area of where my house is, with all the power lines and the substation. So don't feel like, oh, I'm in the city, I got my antenna, I'm not going to go anywhere, I'm not going to talk to anybody. You'll be surprised that you might be able to have some good contacts. So what are some of the best practices in terms of some of the fundamentals? You can use a mag mount, which is fine. In the corner of the car, try that. The Hustler antenna. I know there's other antennas out there, and I've used 3 other brands, and they didn't work out very well for me. But they could work out for you. Great thing about the Hustler, the Resonator, right? It's not very expensive. It's made in the U.S. and the quality. I cannot tell you how great the quality is on that radio. On that coil. It's just mind-blowing. And I think I think you need to look at other videos, of course, and you have to make your decision on it. But you'll be surprised. So the resonator, the mast, the magnet, then you need the iron core for the common current, and then the radio. And then of course you need to adjust the antenna, the radiating antenna, which all of these mobile antennas you have to do, right? Adjust it. Don't lose the little screws or the or the Allen wrench that comes with it. And then you're set. And then you can try it, and you'll be amazed and surprised. If you do, please come back to this video. Tell us what you did. If you did something different, share it with everybody, because we're really interested in knowing, what it is that you do for your car as well. So I hope that was entertaining or knowledgeable in some area, because there's a lot out there and a lot to process. But I hope I've made it so that you're able to consider doing some mobile HF in the car. So this is Frank Whiskey Charlie 0 Oscar. Please consider subscribing. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have a website or you have friends, please share this video, and I sure appreciate that. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you soon. This is Frank Whiskey Charlie 0 Oscar. Bye-bye.